India borrowed nearly $15 billion from Japan to build a dream railway. 8 years later, the project is drowning in debt, delayed indefinitely, and now India is blaming China for the disaster. But the real story? It's far more complicated than anyone's telling you. Picture this: a nation with over 1 billion people racing to modernize its infrastructure, betting big on a futuristic high-speed railway that would transform how its cities connect. The year was 2017. The promise was bold: a sleek bullet train linking two of India's most powerful economic engines, Mumbai and Ahmedabad, slashing travel time from a grueling 8 hours down to just 2. It was supposed to be India's Shinkansen moment, a symbol of progress, ambition, and technological arrival. But here we are in 2025, and that dream is still just that: a dream. The railway isn't finished. The costs have ballooned. And in a twist that few saw coming, a diplomatic standoff involving Germany, China, and a fleet of missing tunnel-boring machines has left the entire project in limbo. So what went wrong? How did a railway project backed by billions in Japanese loans turn into a cautionary tale of financial strain, technical dependency, and geopolitical friction? And why is China now holding the key, literally, to India's infrastructure ambitions? Let's unpack this story from the beginning. Mumbai is not just a city. It's the beating heart of India's economy. Walk through its crowded streets, and you'll feel the pulse of a metropolis that contributes nearly 10% of the country's entire GDP. As of recent estimates, Mumbai's economic output sits at over $300 billion. Its per capita income is 5 times the national average. This is where India's financial markets operate, where Bollywood films are made, where the port brings in goods from around the world. About 500 kilometers to the northwest lies Ahmedabad, the largest city in the state of Gujarat. If Mumbai is the financial capital, Ahmedabad is the industrial powerhouse. Situated on the fertile plains of Gujarat, it's a cotton textile hub, producing a significant chunk of India's fabric output. The city is split by the Sabarmati River, modern development on one side, traditional commerce on the other. It's a city that has grown rapidly, attracting investment, manufacturing plants, and a burgeoning middle class. For decades, these two cities have been connected by conventional rail. But as India's economy expanded, the existing railway network started showing cracks. Tracks aged, trains became overcrowded, journey times remained painfully long. Business leaders, policymakers, and everyday travelers alike began demanding something better. Enter the high-speed rail project. The vision was ambitious: a 500-kilometer corridor, comparable in distance to the stretch between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Trains designed to hit speeds of 350 kilometers per hour. Elevated tracks for most of the route, but also something unprecedented in Indian infrastructure: a 21-kilometer tunnel, 7 kilometers of which would run beneath the sea. This wasn't just about faster trains. It was about unlocking economic potential. Reducing travel time between Mumbai and Ahmedabad would mean stronger business ties, more efficient supply chains, a boost to tourism, and new opportunities for millions of people living in between. But there was a problem. India didn't have the expertise, the technology, or the equipment to pull this off alone. Building undersea tunnels and elevated tracks at this scale required specialized machinery, specifically tunnel boring machines capable of cutting through rock, soil, and seabed with precision. So India looked abroad. And in 2022, procurement officials traveled to Germany to meet with Herrenknecht, one of the world's leading manufacturers of tunnel boring equipment. The Germans listened to India's needs and made a recommendation: horseshoe-shaped shield machines. Now, here's where things get technical, but stay with me. It matters. A tunnel boring machine, or TBM, is not just a giant drill. It's an engineering marvel. These machines can be over 80 meters long, integrating cutting, excavation, support installation, and debris removal all in one continuous operation. They work in a closed environment, which means minimal disturbance to the surface above, critical when you're tunneling beneath densely populated urban areas or under the ocean. The horseshoe shield machine recommended by Herrenknecht was particularly advanced. It could tunnel through hard rock at speeds of up to 6 miles per hour. It had sophisticated guidance systems, mud and water treatment modules, and the ability to handle mixed geological conditions: soft soil, hard rock, underwater terrain. India was impressed. After negotiations, they placed an order for 3 of these machines, worth over $330 million. But here's the catch. While these machines were designed in Germany, they were manufactured in China, specifically in a factory in Guangzhou. Herrenknecht, like many global companies, had shifted parts of its production to China to reduce costs and leverage local manufacturing capacity. India either didn't know this or chose not to focus on it at the time. Either way, the order was placed. The machines were built, and in October 2024, they were ready to ship. That's when China stepped in and seized them. The machines never left Chinese customs. They've been sitting in a bonded warehouse for months now, gathering dust while India's high-speed rail project stalls. Indian officials were furious. Media outlets called it sabotage. Politicians accused China of deliberately blocking India's development. But to understand why China did this, we need to rewind a few years. Back in 2020, India was in the middle of an infrastructure boom. Coastal highways, metro systems in Bangalore, tunnels in Mumbai, dozens of projects were underway, and all of them needed tunnel-boring machines. India knew where to go. China had become a global leader in TBM technology. Since developing its first domestically made shield machine in 2008, Chinese companies had refined the technology, making machines that were not only advanced, but also more affordable than their European or Japanese counterparts. In March 2020, India approached China with a massive order. 18 large slurry water pressure balance composite shield machines, valued at nearly $2 billion. It was one of the biggest TBM deals in recent history. China's response surprised some observers. Despite the tense political relationship between the two countries, particularly after border clashes in the Galwan Valley earlier that year, China agreed to the deal. They would manufacture the first machine in China, deliver it to India, and provide technical support for assembly and operation. India was thrilled. The first machine arrived as promised. Chinese engineers were scheduled to travel to India to assist with assembly and training. And then everything fell apart. India suddenly stopped issuing visas to Chinese technicians. Without the engineers, the machine couldn't be assembled. Without assembly, the project couldn't move forward. And then came the money issue. India began delaying payment, first the final installment for the first machine, then payments for the remaining 17 machines. Officially, India cited bureaucratic hurdles and financial constraints. Unofficially, some analysts suggest a different motive: reverse engineering. By keeping the machine in India and blocking Chinese engineers, Indian teams could study the technology, attempt to replicate it, and potentially build their own domestic TBM industry. But there was a problem. These machines aren't simple. They're not something you can crack open and figure out in a few months. Indian engineers tried. They studied blueprints, attempted assembly, ran diagnostics. Months passed. The machine remained inoperable. Meanwhile, China was watching, and they were keeping score. By 2022, India's economic situation had worsened. The country faced a fiscal deficit of nearly 7% of GDP. Total debt had climbed to over 75% of GDP. Foreign exchange reserves, which are crucial for paying international suppliers, had dropped by $83 billion in a single year. India was stretched thin. In this context, paying for expensive Chinese machinery became a lower priority. The first machine's final payment remained unpaid. The 17 additional machines were never ordered. And China, having been stiffed once, made a decision: no more exports of tunnel-boring machines to India. That policy extended even to machines made by foreign companies. If they were manufactured in China, they weren't going to India. Which brings us back to those 3 German machines sitting in Guangzhou. So now we have a geopolitical knot. India needs the machines to complete its high-speed rail project. Germany sold the machines but can't deliver them because they're stuck in China. And China is holding them as leverage, pointing to the unpaid debts and broken agreements from 2020. India's response has been to shift the narrative. Rather than acknowledging the payment default or the visa restrictions on Chinese engineers, Indian officials and media have framed this as Chinese obstruction. They've linked it to the broader tensions between the 2 countries, referencing the Galwan Valley clashes and portraying China as an adversary deliberately sabotaging India's progress. But the facts tell a more complicated story. This isn't just about geopolitics. It's about contracts, payments, and the messy reality of international procurement. India ordered machines, didn't pay for them, blocked the engineers needed to operate them, and now faces the consequences. Meanwhile, the high-speed rail project languishes. The underground station in Mumbai, the only one along the entire corridor, has seen some progress. Foundation excavation is underway, but it's still far from complete. Without the tunnel boring machines, the undersea section of the railway can't move forward. Completion dates have been pushed back repeatedly. What was supposed to be finished in 2024 is now projected for 2030 at the earliest, if it gets finished at all. And then there's the money. India borrowed $14.6 billion from Japan to fund this project. With delays mounting, that debt has swelled to around $18 billion. Interest is accumulating, deadlines are being missed, and the Indian government, already under fiscal pressure, is facing growing questions about whether this railway will ever deliver the returns it promised. This entire saga raises some uncomfortable questions. Why did India embark on such an expensive project without securing its supply chain? Why block the very engineers needed to make the equipment work? And why, when things went wrong, did the strategy shift to blame rather than resolution? Part of the answer lies in India's broader infrastructure ambitions. The country wants to modernize rapidly. It wants to reduce dependence on foreign technology. It wants to build domestic capacity. Those are all reasonable goals. But the execution has been messy. Attempting to reverse engineer advanced machinery while defaulting on payments isn't a sustainable strategy. It damages credibility, strains relationships with suppliers, and ultimately delays the very projects it's meant to accelerate. There's also the geopolitical dimension. India and China are rivals, competitors for influence in Asia, locked in a border dispute that occasionally turns violent. In that context, every transaction, every delay, every seized shipment becomes more than just a business matter. It becomes a symbol, a move in a larger game. But symbols don't build railways. Machines do. Engineers do. Money does. So what happens next? China shows no sign of releasing those machines unless India addresses the outstanding debts from 2020. Germany is caught in the middle, unable to fulfill a contract because of a dispute between 2 other countries. And India is left with an incomplete railway, mounting debt, and a public that's growing increasingly frustrated with delays. There are a few possible paths forward. India could negotiate directly with China, agree to pay the outstanding amounts, and secure the release of the machines. That would require swallowing some pride and acknowledging the payment failures, which politically might be difficult for the Modi government. Alternatively, India could look for machines from other sources, Japan, Europe, or even try to accelerate domestic production. But that takes time, and time is something this project is rapidly running out of. Or, India could continue the current strategy. Blame China, wait for international pressure to build, and hope that somehow the situation resolves itself. But hopes don't dig tunnels. What's clear is that this project, which was supposed to showcase India's rise as a modern, technologically advanced nation, has instead become a case study in the challenges of ambitious infrastructure development. It's a reminder that building isn't just about vision and funding. It's about execution, expertise, relationships, and the ability to navigate the complex web of global supply chains. It's also a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong when politics and economics collide. When visas become bargaining chips, when payments become negotiation tools, when infrastructure becomes a front in a broader geopolitical struggle, everyone loses. Projects stall, money is wasted, and the people who were supposed to benefit, the commuters, the businesses, the communities along the route, are left waiting. As I wrap up this story, I want you to think about something. We live in an interconnected world. The machines that build our cities are designed in one country, manufactured in another, and deployed in a third. The money that funds our infrastructure comes from international lenders. The expertise that makes it all work crosses borders every single day. That system works when trust exists, when agreements are honored, when countries engage in good faith. But it breaks down quickly when those things disappear, and once broken, it's very hard to rebuild. India's high-speed rail was supposed to be a symbol of progress. Right now, it's a symbol of something else. The fragility of ambition when it's not matched with execution, the danger of overreach when capacity doesn't meet commitment, and the cost of letting politics interfere with pragmatism. Will those machines ever leave China? Will the railway ever be completed? Will India find a way forward that doesn't involve blame but instead focuses on solutions? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The longer this drags on, the more expensive and complicated it becomes. And somewhere along that 500-kilometer corridor between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, the dream of a 2-hour journey is still just that, a dream stuck in a warehouse, waiting for someone to make the first move. If this deep dive into one of the most complex infrastructure stories of our time got you thinking, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're here to bring you the stories behind the headlines, the ones that don't fit into sound bites, the ones that require us to slow down, dig deeper, and ask the harder questions. Drop a comment below. Do you think China should release those machines, or is this about more than just equipment? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.